Maybe you've seen the headlines. Backrooms sends Hollywood running to Reddit for new ideas. The breakout success of a movie that started online, by a director who started online, and brought Gen Z out to the theaters, got Hollywood's attention. And this is just the beginning. Now major studios could be cherry-picking online horror stories to adapt to the big screen. As the Hollywood Reporter says, one agency veteran says that assistants at their agency have identified a bunch of subreddits and short stories that they think could lead to compelling ideas. But the news has already prompted concerns about Hollywood's next moves. I've seen people fretting over the risk of Hollywood learning the wrong lessons from this situation. And I believe that can happen, but a lot of good can come from this too. So creepypastas are coming to Hollywood. Will it go well? Well, let's take a look at the right, the wrong, and what's already happening. Grassroots support matters, but it would be a mistake to think that any highly rated creepypasta would automatically translate to a successful film. And to be clear, when I say creepypasta, I'm broadly talking about any horror fiction that originates online. That could be from Reddit, YouTube, 4chan, anywhere. There's a low barrier for entry, so quality is a wide spectrum. And just pulling from a site like Reddit based on popularity is risky, as some of the most popular stories there are not famous because of their well-written characters or spellbinding plots. And if studios get the idea that people just want movies based off online horror stories, they may overfeed that presumed audience with the runniest of slop. Remember what happens anytime a beloved children's figure enters the public domain? We get cheesy, low-effort horror flicks riding on name recognition. And it could kill interest before we get to see some truly great stories get their shot. As much as I love horror fiction, I don't think creepypasta movies should be the next big thing like superhero movies were. Can you picture it? An MCU-style assembly line of movies based on stories written by children and angsty teens. It could happen though. We already have a template set with the Slender Mansion, which would collect all those infamous characters under one roof. Jeff the Killer, Eyeless Jack, Smiling Dog, and of course Slender Man. I'd love to know who those agency assistants are. Whoever is scouting these stories needs to be aware of why they're enjoyed in the first place. Some creepypastas are more like memes than they are compelling works of fiction. And securing rights to those properties could be a headache as well. For some IPs, the ownership is unclear. In the case of Jeff the Killer, the character was created by one writer, the story that everybody considers canon was written by another, and nobody's certain where the infamous picture came from. But even if you sort all that out, it might not be worth it. Jeff the Killer is a famous story, but it's not a good one. It's the kind of story many people think of when they hear the term creepypasta. It's plagued with amateur writing, an edgy villain, and over-the-top violence that falls short of being scary. If you want people to take it seriously, it needs some work, and that effort might be better spent on better stories. I think we've known for a long time that the internet is home to a lot of great ideas that would do well on the big screen. Warner Brothers just won a bid for film rights to Trevor Henderson's Siren Head, and I would not be surprised to see Pen Pal or the Left Right game announced at some point. They're both standout stories from the r/NoSleep subreddit, but that brings me to my next point. Back when Reddit horror groups like No Sleep were really blowing up, the most infamous stories played into the "this really happened" gimmick. That means the horror was rooted in real-world troubles. You know, the exact opposite of escapism. And quite often the threat in these horror stories was posed by a predator. Sometimes it was depicted as a monster, and sometimes it was just a regular, awful guy. I've even seen this particular kind of story labeled SA horror. I don't really enjoy these stories very much, but they're very popular, so I could see a few of them being adapted to the big screen. But an influx of movies where SA, human trafficking, and child predators are the basis for the horror might not keep people coming out to theaters. There's already a Third Parent movie in the works. Hollywood should probably give that one some space before releasing more films centered around a predator character. The subject matter that stood out in these online communities might not resonate with a wider audience. And I don't want to say that certain topics should be off limits, but I do think they should be handled carefully. So who's actually going to direct these movies? Even with what I've said about some classic creepypastas, it's not fair to dismiss online horror as amateur hour, certainly not anymore. If there's a right lesson to learn here, it's not just about the potential of online horror. It's a lesson that Hollywood has learned and forgotten before. An artist with a vision can move people. Kane Parsons was the right person to direct Backrooms because he had a distinct, singular vision for it, and he'd proven it with his own project. YouTube was just the medium he had available to share his work, and he put in a lot of work. His Backrooms series demonstrates an incredible talent and imagination. By putting it on YouTube, he was able to find an audience, an enthusiastic audience, and the buzz eventually caught the attention of A24. They didn't just find a YouTuber and attach him to their movie to attract his his fans. They found an artist whose body of work exists on YouTube. Whether it's Reddit or YouTube, going forward, artists will be discovered in these spaces because these are the venues available to everyone. Genuine talent and creativity have always stood out, and now with Hollywood looking, I hope it's rewarded. While Warner Brothers' win signals major Hollywood interest in viral IPs, other internet natives have already broken through into traditional media. Just look at Michael and Danny Filippo of Raka Raka. They turned heads with their debut Talk to Me in 2022. And this summer, Obsession released in theaters to show everyone what YouTuber Curry Baker could do. Of course, you already knew he had potential if you saw The Chair. And there have already been some major productions based off viral creepypastas. Channel Zero based each season of its short run on an existing internet horror story like Candle Cove or No End House. And there was also that Slender Man movie that came out back in 2018, but I would not call that a critical success. Now, some of these so bad they're good stories could be just fine as direct-to-streaming movies. They don't all have to be absolute cinema. Sometimes all you want is lighthearted schlock, and I think creepypasta movies could scratch that itch. And sometimes the writer has an interesting idea that just isn't executed that well. With a good screenwriter and director, I bet you could get a decent film out of The Rake or even the Russian Sleep Experiment. Somebody already tried to make a sleep experiment movie back in 2020, but it didn't get off the ground. Maybe somebody else will pick it up in the future. And I would love to see the SCP Foundation get in on this. In fact, it would lend itself to a Monster of the Week style series like the X-Files, hinting at a possible containment breach at some point. It could happen. Good stories are good stories no matter where they come from, and now they're coming from the internet. Look, I don't doubt that we're gonna get some slop, and I bet some good stories could be wasted on bad production decisions, but I choose to be optimistic. This moment could mean a lot for indie creators, and it might fill some theater seats. I'll be watching, and I can't wait to see what adaptations are announced first. If you've got a favorite story you'd like to see made into a movie, let me know what it is in the comments. And if you love horror, whether that's movies, creepypastas, or anything else, you're in the right place, because that's what I talk about. I also write horror, and I have a new story out in the latest issue of Perseid Prophecies. If you're interested, check out Morgue Fridge 4 Must Remain Locked. But that's all I've got for today, so bye for now. And hey, I hope it didn't come across like I just hate Jeff the Killer or don't think it could ever be made into a decent movie. With the right director, who knows what creepypastas could become great films. Unless it's Happy Appy, no one should touch that story, I swear.